The pavement beneath you holds the warmth of the day like a memory cupped in its hands. You feel it seep slowly through the fabric of your trousers, a gentle, grounding heat that seems to say, you are here, and you are safe, in your fingers. The chalk is smooth and cool, a tiny cylinder of possibility. It rests between your thumb and forefinger like a secret you are about to tell. You lower it to the sidewalk, and the first touch leaves a pale blue mark. It is lighter than you expect, like the faint trail of a bird's wing rushing through. Dust. You press a little harder, and the line deepens, still soft, but now certain, now anchored to the ground. The grain of the pavement resists in tiny ways, catching the chalk, releasing it again, creating a texture that feels alive. Around you, the world moves at its own slow pace. A leaf tumbles lazily from a nearby tree, twisting in the air as though it has forgotten which way is down. Somewhere beyond the park, you hear the muted thrum of a car, a sound softened by distance, until it feels more like the memory of motion than motion itself. The late summer sun leans toward you from a high, forgiving sky, warm enough to ease the tension from your shoulders, gentle enough not to demand you rush. You draw another curve, letting it arc without a plan, without the need to be perfect. Your fingers catch some of the chalk's powder, and you notice how it clings to the skin, a thin, velvety layer of blue. That color feels both foreign and familiar. Foreign, because it did not live on your hands a moment ago. Familiar, because the light around you has always carried it, hidden in its brightness, waiting for something, a sky, a flower, a stick of chalk, to draw it out into the open. Light. You pause, thinking of how every color begins there, in the invisible gift that spills endlessly from the sun. It's easy to think of light as white, pure, and singular. But white is not simple. It is a gathering of everything, all the colors you could name, and all the ones you cannot, held together in a single, dazzling silence. When sunlight falls on your blue chalk, certain wavelengths leap away toward your eyes, while the others slip quietly into the pavement, unseen. Your eyes welcome those leaping waves, translate them into what you call blue, and your mind agrees. This is how every hue arrives, as a conversation between the world and the body, between physics and perception. You trace another loop, this one intersecting the first. As you move, you think about how color is not something an object possesses, but something it shares with light. Without light, there is no blue, no green, no red, only shapes waiting in the dark. It makes you wonder, is color more like a truth or more like a dream? The chalk continues to glide, its dust settling into the tiny valleys of the concrete. You think of how this dust was once stone, and before that, shells of ancient sea creatures. Each mark you make is not just a idea in the present. It is the latest chapter in a story written over millions of years. The ocean floor, the slow press of time, the rising of land into air, the crumble into powder, all of it has brought this fragment of earth to your hand. The warmth at your knees shifts as a cloud passes over the sun. Your line changes in tone, not in pigment, but in perception. The soft shadow deepens its color, and you remember that the eye adjusts constantly, reshaping the truth of what you see based on light's presence or absence. Even the same blue can become two different blues, depending on how the day leans upon it. You keep drawing, letting the shapes overlap and spiral. A gentle breeze moves across your skin, and with it comes the faint scent of grass, sun-warmed and breathing quietly. Somewhere close, the sound of water tapping against stone reaches your ears. The small fountain at the park's edge, a reminder that even stillness holds motion within it. The chalk begins to shorten in your hand. Your fingers are more dusted, now blue streaks running across the creases of your palm. You rub your thumb across them and feel the softness give way to your skin's texture. It makes you think of how touch, like sight, is a kind of conversation, one that travels along nerves, translating texture into sensation, sensation into meaning. Each stroke you lay down feels like a sentence in a story you're writing without words. You don't yet know the ending, but the act of creating feels like enough. In this slow moment, the boundary between science and art blurs. Light, color, texture, they all join hands here on the pavement, becoming both the subject and the medium. You sit back for a moment, letting your eyes take in the patterns. The blue stands out against the muted gray of the sidewalk, each curve holding a bit of the sky within it. You imagine how the color will shift as the sun moves, how the texture will change under shade, how the rain one day will wash it into the earth. Nothing you make here will last forever, and somehow that makes it more precious. Your fingers itch to pick up another piece of chalk, maybe a yellow this time, to see how the colors will meet. The thought carries with it a quiet excitement, the kind that doesn't rush you forward, but invites you to linger, to explore at the same gentle pace the day has set for you. And as you reach for that next stick of color, you feel the pull of a question forming. Where did these colors come from before they reached your hands? What secret does the light keep, hidden inside its brightness, that allows it to hold them all at once? You turn the yellow chalk between your fingers, feeling its coolness. The sun glances off its surface, and in that brief shimmer, you sense the full spectrum waiting to be revealed. Tomorrow, perhaps, you will follow the light back to its beginning. The sun rests on your shoulders like a familiar hand. Its warmth seeps slowly through your skin, easing the coolness that lingers from the shade. But you know that the sun's gift is more than comfort, more than this pleasant heat that soaks into you. It is also the painter, the storyteller, the silent architect of all color. You watch the light touch the chalk marks you made earlier, and you notice something quiet but profound. Each stroke has a vibrancy it did not have in shadow. The blue seems fuller, the texture more alive. The sunlight hasn't changed the chalk itself. It has changed the way the chalk meets your eyes. Light, you realize, is not just a visitor drawing. It is the bridge between your creation and your perception. Every beam of sunlight that falls on the sidewalk is a collection of travelers, each moving at its own pace. We call these travelers wavelengths, and together they form what we think of as white light. But white is only our mind's shorthand. Inside that brightness are colors you can see and colors you cannot, each a thread in a vast, invisible tapestry. Imagine that tapestry stretched between the sun and the earth, woven from waves of different lengths. Some are short, like quick breaths, the blues and violets. Some are long, like drawn-out sighs, the reds and oranges. Between them lie the greens and yellows, balanced like a pause between heartbeats. Each one carries a specific energy, a certain character, a voice in the choir of light. You tilt your head and watch the sunlight flicker off the surface of your yellow chalk. Some wavelengths leap toward you, catching your eye, while others slip silently into the pavement or scatter into the air. The yellow you see is not trapped in the chalk. It is chosen, sent to you by the way the surface interacts with light. The rest of the colors in that beam are turned away, absorbed, or transformed into warmth. It strikes you how generous sunlight is. It offers every color to every surface, without preference or hesitation. What is accepted and what is refused depends on the nature of the material itself, the chalk, the concrete, the grass nearby. Each accepts some wavelengths and returns others, creating the endless variety of colors you see. You picture the beam of sunlight as a ribbon, one that only reveals its true nature when passed through a prism. In your mind's eye, the ribbon unfurls into a spectrum: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, each blending softly into the next. This spectrum is not something light becomes when it meets the prism. It is something light has always been. The prism is simply a translator, showing you what was hidden in plain sight. Your thoughts wander to the times you've seen rainbows arching over a summer field. They are nature's prisms, bending and splitting light as it passes through tiny droplets of water. A sight of them stirs something deep, not because they are rare, but because they are proof of a truth you usually cannot see. That sunlight is not a single voice, but a chorus. You look down at your own shadow, sharp-edged against the pavement. Even in the shade it casts, light is working, bouncing, bending, finding its way around obstacles. Some of it comes directly from the sun, some reflected from the world around you. It's never still. Light is movement, constant and tireless. A river that never runs dry. As you continue drawing, you notice how the sun's angle changes the colors before you. Near midday, the light falls straight and strong, the colors clear and bright. Later, as the day leans toward evening, the sunlight will travel through more of the atmosphere, scattering shorter wavelengths and letting the longer reds and oranges dominate. This is why sunsets glow with such warmth, why the same blue chalk might look different in the cool tones of morning and the golden haze of dusk. You pause and think about the journey of each photon, the smallest packet of light, from the heart of the sun to where you sit. It begins deep inside a star, in a place so dense and hot that hydrogen atoms merge to become helium, releasing energy. This energy struggles outward, bouncing and scattering through the sun's layers for tens of thousands of years before it finally breaks free into space. From there, it takes just over 8 minutes to cross the vast gap to Earth. 8 minutes. After a journey that began long before you drew your first line today, the thought humbles you. The sunlight warming your back and lighting your chalk has traveled farther, and for longer than you can easily imagine. And yet, here it is, soft and unassuming, settling on your shoulder as if it had always belonged there. You draw a final curve, this one in yellow, letting it meet the blue where they touch. The colors seem to speak to each other, not in words, but in the way they share the light. Blue reflects its short, quick waves. Yellow returns its long, steady ones. Together, they create a harmony, a balance that is pleasing without needing to be explained. A breeze stirs the leaves above you, dappling your drawing in shifting patches of light and shade. The effect is like watching a secret language, a code of brightness and shadow written across your work. Some parts brighten, others soften, and you realize this is the nature of all things in light. They are never truly still. You lean back on your hands, letting the sun fill your vision for a moment. You don't look directly at it, you know. Its power is too much for your eyes to hold. Instead, you watch the way it touches everything else, revealing not just shapes, but the colors that live within them. In this gentle moment, the science of light feels less like a lesson and more like an invitation to notice, to wonder, to keep looking. A part of you wonders what happens next in this conversation between the world and your senses. The sunlight has arrived. It has been shaped by the chalk, chosen certain wavelengths to send your way. Now, something inside you will need to translate those wavelengths into the experience you call color. That translation will happen quietly, invisibly, in the small, intricate structures of your eyes. The blue and yellow lines rest together on the pavement, glowing gently in the sun's embrace. Somewhere within you, the light they return is already becoming something more, not just a wavelength, but a vision. And as you lift your gaze, you wonder how your eyes can turn light into sight. The pink chalk glides easily across the pavement, leaving behind a soft, powdery trail. You look at it and feel certain that the pink is there, a property of the chalk itself, fixed and unquestionable. But the truth is gentler, stranger. The pink you see does not truly live in the chalk. It lives in the space between the world and your mind, carried there by light and transformed by your body. It begins with reflection. The sunlight, made of many colors, falls on your drawing. The chalk absorbs most of those wavelengths, keeping them quietly to itself, but sends others bouncing away. These particular waves, a mixture of reds and a touch of blue, find their way toward you. They travel through the air in straight lines, bending only when they meet a change in their path. When they reach your eyes, their real journey begins. Your eyes are open gates, curved and glistening, ready to welcome the light. The first thing each beam encounters is the cornea, a clear layer that both protects and bends the light inward. From there, the light passes through the pupil, the dark, shifting circle at the center of your eye, which widens or narrows, depending on how bright the day feels. The pupil is framed by the iris, its colors swirling like calm water, giving shape to the light's entrance. Beyond the pupil lies the lens, a living, flexible window. It bends and focuses the light, adjusting itself for distance the way you might lean forward to see something more clearly. The lens directs the pink's wavelengths toward the back of your eye, where the retina waits like a secret garden of sensing cells. Here is where the magic and the science entwine. The retina is lined with millions of photoreceptors, rods and cones. The rods are quiet sentinels, attuned to light and shadow, keeping watch in dimmer conditions. The cones are the color interpreters. There are 3 kinds, each one sensitive to a different range of wavelengths. One for reds, one for greens, and one for blues. When the pink light reaches them, it is not recognized as pink at all. Instead, different cones are activated, in varying degrees, sending signals forward, each one a piece of a larger puzzle. These signals travel along the optic nerve, a bundle of countless fibers, into the depths of your brain. There, in the visual cortex, the information is pieced together. The brain blends the cone responses, interprets the combination of red and blue signals, and decides, this is pink. It does this instantly, without effort, without the need for you to think about the process. And yet, what you call pink is not an inherent quality of the chalk. It is an experience, a collaboration between the physical world and the living body. Without the chalk to reflect the light, the color would not arrive. Without your eyes and brain to interpret it, the pink would not exist at all. You lean closer to your drawing, noticing the texture of the powder under sunlight. Each tiny particle reflects light differently, adding subtle variations to the color. It's why no 2 strokes look exactly the same, even when made with the same piece of chalk. Your eyes pick up these minute differences, your brain weaving them into a seamless whole. The awareness is comforting in a quiet way. It means that vision is not just a matter of taking in the world as it is. It's a relationship. The world offers light, shapes, and movement. Your body offers interpretation, meaning, and memory. Neither is complete without the other. A gentle breeze brushes past, and for a moment you close your eyes. The pink disappears instantly, not because it has left the pavement, but because the light can no longer reach your retina. In darkness, the rods take over, ready to help you navigate shapes and shadows, but the vibrant dialogue of color falls silent. When you open your eyes again, the pink returns as if it had been patiently waiting for you. You trace another line beside it, this time with green chalk. Immediately, the contrast heightens both colors, a trick of the brain known as simultaneous contrast. Side by side, the cones in your eyes work harder, sharpening the boundary between one color and the next. The science behind it is complex, but the effect is simple. The world feels brighter, more alive. When colors converse with each other, you think about how personal this whole process is. No one else sees exactly what you see. Even if they sit beside you, looking at the same drawing in the same light, their eyes and brain might interpret the colors differently. Our vision is shaped by biology, but also by experience, by the countless shades we've stored in memory. The pink on the pavement might remind you of a spring flower, while for someone else, it calls to mind a childhood sweater or a sunset sky. The chalk in your hand grows smaller, and you brush the dust from your fingertips. It falls back to the pavement, where it will wait for light to wake it into color again. You realize that what you see is never just what is. It is also what your body allows you to see. And in that way, every glance at the world is both universal and deeply personal. You let your gaze wander to the sky above, a pale and gentle blue. The same process is happening there. Light scattering, cones responding, the brain naming the color. It makes you wonder how much of the world exists outside your vision, in wavelengths your eyes cannot catch. Ultraviolet, infrared, colors beyond color, waiting just outside the edges of your perception. You look back to your chalk, its powder, glinting in the sun. If color is something your mind creates, then every shade is also a kind of memory. And just as memories can fade, so too can the marks you make, carried away by time, weather, and the gentle passage of days. You begin to think about how your mind holds on to these moments, even when the pavement is bare. The chalk dust on your fingers feels impossibly light. It clings to your skin with no weight, yet it carries the entire story of the marks you've made. You rub your thumb across your fingertips, and the powder shifts, fine and dry, leaving faint smudges in the creases of your skin. Even after it is gone, your mind will remember its softness. You look down at your drawing on the pavement, the arcs and loops of color gently glowing in the afternoon light. Each one is more than a shape. It's a moment, caught and held for. Now, you wonder how long you will remember this exact pattern, and in what way. Will it stay clear and crisp, or will it fade and soften like the lines themselves will in the coming days? Memory, like chalk, is both durable and delicate. Some moments stay vivid for years, while others dissolve quietly into the background of your life. Your brain is always deciding, without you noticing, which details to keep and which to let go. It does this not to betray you, but to protect you, to keep you from carrying more than you can hold. Inside your head, billions of nerve cells, neurons, work together to capture this moment. The sight of the chalk, the feel of its powder, the warmth of the pavement under your knees, all of it is turned into electrical signals that race along delicate pathways. These signals leap from one neuron to another at junctions called synapses, where a brief spark of chemistry passes the message forward. Each spark is like the blink of a firefly, small, quick, but bright enough to light the path to memory your brain does not store. Memories in a single place, like files in a cabinet. Instead, each piece of this experience, the colors you see, the warmth you feel, the sound of a distant bird, is stored in different regions, connected by networks that can be reactivated later. When you remember, your brain is not retrieving a photograph. It is reassembling the moment from scattered pieces, stitching it together anew. This is why memories can change. Each time you recall something, your brain slightly rewrites it, blending what actually happened with the feelings and knowledge you carry now. The memory of this afternoon, years from now, might look a little different in your mind. The light softer, the colors more vivid, the air warmer than it truly was. Memory is not a static record. It is a living thing, shaped by time and emotion. Reach for another piece of chalk, and as you press it to the pavement, you notice the faint dust rising into the sunlight. Your senses are working together in quiet harmony, sight, touch, even smell, to build a rich, layered memory. This multisensory detail makes the moment more likely to last. Scientists know that memories tied to more than one sense are stronger, anchored by multiple pathways in the brain. It is why the smell of rain or the sound of a certain song can carry you instantly back to a specific day, long past. The marks you make now are not just for you in this moment. They are seeds for future versions of yourself, waiting to be rediscovered. Perhaps one day you will see a child drawing with chalk on a sidewalk, and without warning, this afternoon will come rushing back. You will feel the warmth of the sun again, smell the faint scent of dust, hear the quiet hum of summer air. It will not be exactly the same, it never is, but it will be enough to make you smile. You think about how memory shapes who you are. Without it, you would be untethered, drifting through each day with no continuity, no story to hold on to. Memory gives your life its threads, connecting moments into patterns, patterns into meaning. And yet, just like your chalk lines, it is always changing, always vulnerable to the weather of time. The chalk's powdery texture under your fingertips mirrors the texture of memory itself, fragile, prone to smudging, but beautiful in its impermanence. You could try to preserve your drawing by photographing it, capturing every line exactly as it is now. But the photo would not hold the warmth of the pavement, the sound of leaves rustling above, or the way the light shifted slowly across your work. Those things live only in the memory you carry inside you. You pause to brush your hands together, the last of the dust falling in a pale cloud that drifts down to the ground. Some of it will be carried away by the breeze. Some will settle into the tiny cracks in the pavement, where it will remain for days, maybe weeks, until rain washes it away. And some, the part you cannot touch, will remain with you, tucked into the quiet folds of your mind. In a way, your brain is also made of dust, stardust to be exact. The elements that make up your neurons were forged long ago in the hearts of stars, scattered across space and gathered into the cells that now hold your memories. When you recall this moment, you are using the oldest materials in the universe to rebuild something that happened only seconds ago. It is a thought both humbling and comforting. You keep drawing, letting the colors layer and overlap. Each stroke adds another small detail to remember, another spark to store away. You know you won't remember every line, but you will remember. The feeling, the calm, the sunlight, the gentle passage of time. Sometimes it is the feeling that matters more than the image itself. Memory, after all, is not just a record. It is also a guide. It helps you decide what matters, what to seek again, what to leave behind. By remembering this quiet afternoon, you are also telling yourself, this matters. Peace matters. Beauty in small things matters. You look at your hands, dusted faintly with the remains of colors you've already used. It occurs to you that one day, even when the drawing is faded entirely, you might still find yourself looking at your fingers and imagining that soft, powdery cling. The body remembers in ways the mind cannot always explain. A shadow passes over your work as a cloud moves across the sun. The colors deepen in the dimmer light, and you are reminded again of how much memory depends on perspective. The same moment can be remembered in different lights, both literally and figuratively. You wonder how your drawing will look if you return at dusk, or tomorrow morning, or after the first rain. And you wonder, too, what will happen when the marks are gone, when the chalk has washed away and the pavement is clean again. Will the space look empty, or will you still see the shapes in your mind, ghost-like but vivid? Will your memory be enough to fill in the absence? You lean back and study the shapes, thinking not of their meaning, but of their form, the way. Each line bends, curves, and connects. The language of memory is one thing, but the language of lines is another. And you begin to feel the pull of that other language, waiting for you to trace it across the pavement. The chalk rests lightly in your hand as you bend forward once more. This time, you are not thinking about color. You are thinking about shape. The first stroke you make is a straight one, running cleanly from left to right. It feels certain, decisive, a line with purpose. In that single movement, you have created direction. The line points somewhere, even if you don't yet know where it leads. A straight line is the simplest shape, yet within it is the seed of infinite designs, grids, orders, pathways, and edges. It is the foundation stone of geometry, the language of space and form. You pause, then let your wrist soften, guiding the chalk into a slow curve. The arc feels different, less certain, more fluid. It suggests motion, a journey rather than a destination. Curves invite the eye to follow, to wander, to linger. They hold the promise of something just around the bend. When you spiral the chalk inward, the shape becomes a small galaxy at your feet. Each turn draws you closer to its center, and back out again if you reverse the motion. Spirals exist everywhere. In nature, from the swirl of seashells to the arms of galaxies, from the curling tendrils of plants to the whirl of a storm. You feel connected to those patterns as if your hand has joined in a conversation much older than you. Geometry is not just in rulers and compasses. It lives quietly beneath the world, shaping the way things grow and fit together. The angles in a snowflake, the symmetry of a leaf, the hexagons in a beehive's comb, all are written in the same language your chalk is now speaking. The sidewalk may seem an ordinary canvas, but when your hand moves across it, you are tracing the grammar of the universe. You draw a triangle, each side meeting the other in a clean join. It feels stable, grounded, the smallest shape that can enclose space. Architects and engineers use triangles because they are strong. Nature uses them too, in the crystalline structures of minerals and the cross-sections of certain plant stems. Your triangle may be only chalk and pavement, but it carries within it the same principles that hold up bridges and mountains. You shift to circles, letting the chalk glide smoothly without corners. A circle is the shape of wholeness, without beginning or end. It encloses without dividing, embraces without boundaries. The planets follow curved paths around the sun, not because they are drawn by hand, but because gravity bends their motion into orbits. Your small chalk circles mirror that cosmic dance in miniature dot as you work. You notice how certain shapes create balance together. A straight line next to a curve feels harmonious, each enhancing the other. A cluster of triangles forms a star-like pattern. Overlapping circles become petals of a flower. Mathematics hides in these patterns, ratios, symmetry, proportions, yet here on the pavement, they feel more like poetry than equations. Your fingers move almost without thought now, drawing lines that intersect and repeat. Some cross at neat right angles, others at gentle slants. Angles measure the meeting of lines, and each one has its own mood. A sharp angle feels precise and energetic. A wide angle feels open and relaxed. In these small differences lies the ability to change the feeling of an entire design. You think of ancient artists and builders who used geometry long before the word existed. The pyramids of Egypt, the mosaics of Rome, the labyrinths of Greece, each was born from the careful meeting of lines. Even without chalk, they were working in the same language you are speaking now, one that needs no translation. The chalk dust collects at the edges of your lines, tiny particles that blur their precision. You realize this is part of their beauty, the way hard geometry meets the softness of the medium. It reminds you that perfection is not the goal, balance is. A line that wavers slightly can still carry strength. A curve that is not exact can still lead the eye gracefully onward. Some lines you draw quickly, letting energy guide you. Others you make slowly, feeling the grain of the pavement under the chalk. Both have their place. In geometry, as in life, speed changes the outcome. Fast lines carry momentum, slow lines carry weight. The more you draw, the more you sense that these shapes are speaking back to you. Not in words, but in the quiet satisfaction of seeing them settle into place. A composition forms, not from a strict plan, but from listening to how the lines want to arrange themselves. In this way, you are not just creating. You are collaborating. You sit back to look at what you've made, a blend of straight edges and flowing arcs, closed shapes and open paths. There is no single subject, yet the whole feels intentional. It is a map of motion, a record of the meeting between your hand, the chalk, and the geometry that underlies the world. Your eyes follow one particular line, a gentle curve that starts at the edge of your work and winds inward before joining another shape. It reminds you that lines are journeys, and journeys have destinations, even if you do not know them when you begin. This line leads you to a cluster of overlapping circles, their edges softened by chalk dust. Within them, you see the suggestion of petals, as if a flower has quietly bloomed under your hand. And suddenly, you are thinking about the materials themselves, the chalk, the pavement, the minerals in each. Shapes give form, but what you use to make them gives them life. The geometry is the language, but the chalk is the voice. You look at the shapes you've made and wonder about the substance beneath your fingertips, this soft, ancient powder that has carried your lines into being. To understand the art fully, perhaps you must first understand the chalk itself. The chalk lies in your palm like a small, pale moon. It is cool at first, then warms to your touch, taking the temperature of your skin and the pace of your breath. You roll it between your fingers and feel the slight drag, that soft resistance. It promises a mark whenever you ask. It seems simple, harmless, almost weightless. Yet inside this quiet stick is a geology of stories, compressed across unthinkable spans of time. You tilt it to the light and see tiny glints in the matte surface. They are not glitter, not paint, but fragments of crystal catching the sun. This chalk is mostly calcium carbonate, Casco, a lattice of calcium and carbonate ions arranged like a patient pattern of handshakes. Its molecules form in low, gentle energy, building layer upon layer until dust becomes structure and structure becomes stone. You are holding order made from pressure, time, and sea. Long before this stick met your hand, it lived as shell and skeleton. In warm, shallow oceans, creatures too small to name built their houses grain by grain, pulling dissolved calcium and carbonate from the water. When they lived, their shells held them. When they died, their shells outlived them. The ocean floor became a quilt of fragments, a rain of white snow falling in slow motion, settling, compacting, and thickening into sediment. Gravity did the steady work of gathering. Chemistry did the quiet work of binding. Over millions of years, layers piled upon layers. Water seeped through, carrying ions, dissolving a little here, precipitating a little there, gluing the pieces together. In some places, the crystals grew as calcite. In others, as aragonite, the same formula with a different arrangement, like two poems written from the same vocabulary. Pressure increased, temperature shifted, and the soft became firm, then solid, then stone. The sea wrote limestone on its floor in lines that stretched for continents. The planet moved under its own slow engines. Where plates collided, old sediments rose and folded, a seabed opening like a book to the air. Mountains lifted what once was mud and shells, exposing bright cliffs to the wind and rain. Each drop of water read those cliffs, letter by letter, and carried the story down as dust and pebbles. Quarries opened where the rock lay near the surface, and hands cut blocks. From the bones of oceans got from rock to powder is only a matter of patience and intention. Stone breaks along plains, then fractures into chips, and finally is milled into grains so fine they float at the lightest breath. Pigments join this pale meal. Iron oxides for reds and yellows, ultramarine for deep blues, carbon for black, earths for warm browns and greens. Binders are added sparingly, just enough to help the grains agree to stand together, to hold a shape without hardening into refusal. Crust in molds, dried in air, chalk becomes again what the sea once made it, a way to build a surface. Only now the surface is your sidewalk. You draw a line, and the stick spends itself, leaving a trail of microcrystals in the valleys of the concrete. Each grain reflects some wavelengths, swallows others, and converts a little of the light into heat. You feel that warmth when you kneel. You hear the soft rasp when crystal meets stone. Friction turns order into sound, a hush that lasts only as long as your hand moves. When you stop, the chalk is silent but radiant, caught in the sun like pollen. On air. Calcium carbonate is generous in another way. It can take up carbon dioxide from water and release it again, depending on the conditions. In caves, dripping water breathes and deposits calcite into stalactites and stalagmites, building stone icicles from liquid patience. On seafloors, where acidity rises, calcite can dissolve, a reminder that even stone is part of a breathing cycle. Your chalk is a participant in that cycle, not an exception to it. It is a pause in a conversation the planet holds with water, air, and life. You turn the stick and notice how easily it crumbles at the edges. This brittleness is useful. The grains detach and stay behind, ensuring that the mark is always brighter than the tool. Other materials behave differently. Charcoal blackens by smearing carbon ribbons. Graphite slips tiny sheets onto the page. Chalk gives you crystals, like dispersed mirrors, arranged at random angles so they catch light from many directions. This is why a pastel stroke seems to glow, why it keeps its softness even in direct sun. Chemistry loves surfaces, and your drawing is all surface. Each grain offers a landscape of edges for light to visit. Rough concrete provides anchor points, and capillary forces help hold the dust in place. Static electricity plays its flicker of a role, attracting a few grains, repelling others, until the field between chalk, hand, and ground reaches a quiet balance. You see only color and line. Beneath them, forces negotiate a truce. If you wet the pavement first, the same chalk darkens and spreads. Water dissolves a thin skin of ions from each grain, then evaporates, leaving tiny bridges that cement neighbors together. When dry, the colors look deeper, as if the grains have agreed to stand shoulder to shoulder. If rain falls hard, those bridges melt and the pigment travels, sinking into pores, flowing toward drains, entering soil. There, iron oxides rust a little more, clay swells and contracts, and microbes take their tiny share. You think of gardeners sprinkling lime to sweeten acidic soil, of painters priming walls with chalky gesso to make pigments sing. You think of fossils sleeping in limestones, and of cathedrals carved from the same stone, their surfaces weathering into lace. Your stick belongs to that lineage. Agriculture, art, architecture, and now a quiet afternoon on a sidewalk. Nothing about it is trivial. It is humbled because it is common, and common because life has needed it for a very long time. The symbol on its wrapper suggests a warning about dust, and you nod to the truth in that. Fine particles can trouble lungs. Simple masks turn hazard into habit. Even gentleness has edges, so you blow the dust away carefully and let the breeze finish the work. You notice how the plume lifts, swirls, and vanishes, and you remember that. The air is a solvent, too, invisible but active. Everything you move returns to the world in some form. You return the stick to the pavement and make a broad sweep. The chalk squeaks faintly, a reminder that sound can arise from microscopic stick and slip. Crystals snag, release, snag again, and the vibrations reach your ears as a small, bright voice. Across the stroke, color looks even, but when you lean close, you see dunes and valleys, cliffs and flats, a topography of pigment. The smoother you press, the more the plateaus spread. The lighter you skim, the more the peaks stand apart. Underneath this, heat gathers and leaves. Your hand warms the chalk. The sun warms the stone. A breeze carries warmth away. Calcium carbonate. Itself remains steady. It does not burn, nor melt at such modest temperatures, but it will decompose if fire forces it, releasing carbon dioxide and leaving quicklime behind. That reaction, driven in kilns, has built mortar for centuries, letting stones adhere and civilizations rise wall by wall. You smile at the thought that the same mineral that binds cities now binds a ribbon of pink to a path. You swap to white and notice how it lifts every other color. White chalk fills gaps between grains of blue and green, scattering more light. Back to your eyes. Painters call this scumbling. Chemists might call it increasing diffuse reflectance. Both are true, and both describe why your drawing brightens without losing its softness. In this union of language, science and craft sit. Side by side like old friends on a bench, you pause to drink water, and condensation beads on the bottle. A drop falls and darkens the chalk for a heartbeat, then shrinks, then disappears. Phase changes happen quietly around you. Liquid to vapor in the air, dissolved ions to crystal on the ground. Crystallization is a way of remembering molecules. Lining up into a repeating story, they know my heart. When you add another stroke, your chalk writes a small chapter in that same orderly script. If you press hard on an edge, the stick snaps with a soft tick. A clean fracture face gleams briefly, smooth and plainer, as if a tiny mirror has opened. You study the break and feel no loss. Now you have two tools, a broadside for soft clouds of color, a sharp point for crisp lines. Fracture is not failure here, just a reconfiguration that offers new gestures. The earth is full of such gift-split rock-making canyons, cracked ice making paths for light. You lean back and look at the drawing as a whole, its layers of pigment sitting lightly on the stone. Nothing is permanent, you remind yourself, but nothing is wasted either. When the rain comes, some grains will ride the water into soil, where calcium may rejoin a root or a shell. When the sun returns, crystals will grow in caves one slow breath at a time. Matter travels in circles larger than your afternoon, patient circles that invite you to draw again. A shadow reaches across your work, the low branch of a nearby tree laying a gray stripe over blue and yellow. In the cool band, the colors seem to shift, not because the grains changed, but because the light did. Your eyes recalibrate in an instant, trusting illumination to define what they know. The angle of the sun has become part of the image, a moving partner that redraws your lines without touching them. You feel the day turning, and with it, a new question forming at the edge of your attention. You raise the chalk, then pause, noticing how the branch's outline lengthens by the minute. The world is composing with you now, adding contrast and depth with nothing but geometry of light. What is chemistry without shadows, you wonder? And what are colors without the angle that frames them? Perhaps the next stroke is not a stroke at all, but a way of seeing lines through you let your hand rest, listening for the quiet language of perspective dot as the branch shifts again. You notice chemistry in silence, grains settling, ions drying into tiny bridges, surfaces trading light for warmth. Nothing here is still, not pigment, not stone, not air. Your breath changes the balance for a moment, then returns it. The shadow lengthens, a metronome inviting you to measure space. You watch the light tilt and the shadow stretch until your drawing changes shape without moving at all. Perhaps the next lesson isn't in color or matter, but in the angle that makes a line appear to lean. You lift your gaze to the sun's path and feel the quiet pull of shadows and perspective. You notice it first as a soft drift across the pavement, a branch's outline sliding over your chalk, stretching, thinning, then gathering itself again. When the wind stills, What you drew minutes ago is no longer the same picture. Nothing on the ground has moved, yet everything appears different. The shift is not in the chalk. It is in the light. Shadows are the handwriting of the sun, and the script changes as the day turns. You let your hand rest and watch the shadow advance. Its edge is not a single border, but two companions. The dark umbra, where light is mostly kept away, and the end, paler penumbra, where light and shade overlap. Even in a leaf's outline, complexity lives at the boundary. The penumbra softens the world's corners, turning hard geometry to velvet. If you stand, your own silhouette joins the composition, long in the morning, shorter near midday, then long again toward evening. The sidewalk becomes a sundial without. Numbers. Your body becomes the gnomon, the pointer that tells time by absence. The sun's height above the horizon sets the length of every shadow. When the sun leans low, rays skim the surface and shadows run far. When it rises high, rays fall. Steeply and shadows gather at your feet. You feel the story of the day written in the shade. You cast. You kneel again and trace the edge of a leaf shadow with pale gray. The chalk glides, following a border that looks crisp from one angle and feathery from another. That difference is a gentle lesson in perspective. The ground is flat, but your vantage is not. Change where you sit, and the drawing changes too. Perspective is the quiet agreement between your eyes and the world about how distance should look. Test the idea with your chalk box. Place it far from your drawing and it seems small. Slide it near and it swells. Nothing about the box has changed. Only its distance has. Straight edges that run away from you appear to converge. If you extend them with your chalk, they meet at a vanishing point, an imagined place on the horizon where parallel lines seem to kiss. Train tracks do this perfectly. In life, they remain parallel. In vision, they narrow to a point no train ever reaches. Your sidewalk has its own horizon, low and intimate. The line where concrete meets grass becomes the far edge of your little world. Above it, the sky is your frame, a high window pouring light down at an angle that keeps shifting. Perspective weaves these elements together. It turns the flatness of the pavement into a map of depth, letting you step into the scene with your eyes. You draw a simple cube, all edges measured by hand, then tip it with two lines that recede. Already it feels like a box resting on the path, rather than a square. You add a second cube a little smaller, its lower edge lifted higher on the page. The brain reads this as distance. It is a quiet illusion built from consistent rules. Nearer things look larger and lower. Farther things look smaller and higher. Shadows reinforce the trick, assigning light to one face, dusk to another. A breeze returns, and the tree writes new. Shapes onto your chalk. You notice how the shadow of the round leaf is not perfectly round. Its outline stretches away from the sun, an elongated echo called foreshortening. Foreshortening belongs to perspective's family. A limb reaching toward you looks shorter than it is. A road seen at an angle seems to compress. Your brain corrects for these shifts constantly, balancing geometry with expectation, so the world remains readable. Now you shade your cube with the side of the chalk, keeping strokes parallel. The face turned away from the sun becomes quieter. The top face brightens. The difference is not just artistic. It is information. Light arrives from a direction, and surfaces confess their orientation by how much of that light they return. Even without color, your eyes infer form from brightness alone. This is how the moon shows craters to you, not by pigment, but by shadowing. A cloud slides across the sun, and the scene dims as though someone breathed on a candle. Shadows soften, edges blur, and contrast dissolves. Your drawing looks more dreamlike. You learn another rule of the day. Harsh, direct light etches sharp boundaries. Diffuse light spreads kindness, letting everything belong to the same softness. Photographers chase these differences with lenses. You chase them with powder and patience. When you stand and walk a few steps, the scene rearranges itself. Lines that were parallel tilt, the vanishing point slides. The cubes reassert their flatness. Your memory keeps the older arrangement close, enough that the change feels like a transformation, not a replacement. Perspective is not fixed. It follows you. The picture is co-authored by your position in the world's geometry. You choose where to stand. The world answers with angles. The sun climbs a little higher, and your own shadow pulls closer. If you mark its length at intervals, you create a record of the sun's path, a graph made of ground and body. The marks are not evenly spaced. Geometry and time collaborate to make morning and afternoon stretch differently. Ancient builders measured the seasons by such lengths, aligning stones and doorways with light on specific days. Your chalk marks join that long lineage of noticing. You return to your cube and add a slender pillar beside it. Its shadow falls at the same angle as the cube's, a whisper of consistent physics. You can measure the pillar's height by the length of its shadow, using similar triangles without naming them. Proportion is perspective's faithful ally. You feel it more than calculate it. The body understands ratios, the way it understands balance on a bicycle. A bird's shadow crosses your drawing, a swift arrow that leaves no trail. Movement in shadow is the most tender of signals. Something has passed, and you were there too. Witness the absence it cast. Perspective is not just lines and vanishing points. It is also time layered onto light. You kneel once more and add long stripes to the pavement, radiating toward a point beyond the edge of the sidewalk. The stripes guide the eyes inward, but they also invite feet to follow. Perspective can be directional, a map for attention and motion. Painters have done this for centuries, building roads of sight through frames. Today your frame is the open air, and the road is chalk and intention. Shadows lengthen again as the cloud thins. Your drawing takes on late afternoon drama, contrast deepening like the low notes of a cello. Every line seems sure now that the light chooses sides. You realize that perspective is not an imposition, but a listening. You listen to where the light comes from, where it falls, how it leaves. You listen to how distance reshapes the same object without arguing with its truth. You sit back and let the entire scene settle into you. The cubes with their leaning lines, the pillar with its measured shade, the leaf shadows drifting like slow fish across a shallow stream. The pavement is still the same plane, but your mind has built height and depth upon it, scaffolding made from memory, geometry, and the sun's steady voice. A breeze lifts again, and with it come quieter shadows. A bee passing, a grass blade, quivering, the ripple of a frog near the pond. Their shapes are smaller, quicker, but no less instructive. Each life writes itself briefly across your work, offering scales your drawing cannot supply by lines alone. Where light teaches form, living things teach rhythm. You realize the picture has never been only chalk and stone. It has always included the passing of wings, the nod of leaves, the hush of water, and slow footsteps out of frame. Perspective expands to include what moves through it. Space makes room for life. Life, in turn, clarifies space. You smile and stay. You rest the chalk and listen to the soft traffic of nearby wings and leaves. The shadows keep time while the small lives around your pavement play the melody. You breathe with them, and your eyes follow. Perhaps it is time to look up from lines and watch the living map that surrounds them. You pause with the chalk in your hand and notice the world noticing you. A frog sits at the pond's rim, sides lifting and falling like tiny bellows. A bee threads past your shoulder, stitching the air from flower to flower. Above, leaves trade. Whispers. Your drawing is quiet, but nothing else is. You settle near the ground and let the living city reveal itself. Ants follow a narrow road along a crack, touching the next with brief antennal taps. A sparrow lands, tilts its head, then hops twice, already weighing distance, cover, and Crumb's ecology is the weaving of those maps with place, less a list than a choreography. A frog is not merely a frog. It exchanges insects for nutrients, becomes prey for herons, mouths mosquitoes, voices dusk. The bee ferries pollen, hunger riding on sugar, linking blossoms that cannot walk. Even your chalk joins in, mineral meal. Return to dust that soil can use. At your feet. The lawn's edge is an ecotone, a boundary where kinds of living overlap. Grasses hold dew longer. Clover draws pollinators. Roots thread the soil into a mesh, and fungi shuttle phosphate and warnings. A mycorrhizal thread can run from tree to tree, sharing carbon in lean moments. The pond composes itself from light. And leaves. Algae sip sun and thicken into green music. A dragonfly hovers, blue as thought, and clamps a gnat from the air. Energy moves through all of this, from sunlight to sugar, from sugar to muscle, from motion to heat. The phrase food web is tidy. The real thing is a river braided into branches. You notice rhythms inside rhythms. The bee times its flights to warmth. The frog keeps to shadow until it has stored enough sun to leap. Flowers open and close with light. Birds trade songs at the bookends of day. Even the bacteria under your knees rise and rest on schedules. Chemistry humming with dawn and dim. A breeze brings sweetness that was not here a moment ago. Somewhere a blossom opens, hiring the bee with the currency of scent. The deal is ancient. Drink and carry. The bee's fuzz collects grains that latch by hooks and static. On the next flower, a few fall to the right place, and a seed begins as a whisper. Later, a finch eats that seed and flies, and the plant travels on wings. Dispersal is generosity with a strategy. Your drawing gathers life of its own. An ant investigates a blue curve, tasting calcium with careful mouthparts. A tiny moth rests on the yellow, as if it were a sunflower. Your presence is a disturbance, yes, but also a contribution. Shade for soil, salt from skin, water from breath. Ecology does not demand absence. It asks for attention. City and park knit together here. A storm drain waits, a metal mouth where leaves spin on windy days. Beneath it, corridors run dark and cool, carrying runoff and seeds. Dandelions sign bright names in any crack. You think of niches, the roles that let many lives share space without. Canceling each other. The frog takes twilight. The bee takes noon. The owl takes midnight. The earthworm takes rain. Partitioning is a truce. When resources narrow, overlap grows, and quiet can tighten into competition. Still, rivals can strengthen the whole when they check and balance one another. Stability lives, paradoxically, inside change. You ring a clover head with a chalk circle and watch a bumble land, its weight bowing the stem. The bee vibrates, buzzing pollen loose in a tuned thrum called sonication. Tomatoes like this music, blueberries too. Vibration becomes harvest, sound turned into fruit. You smile at how many languages one meadow speaks. Perfume, ultraviolet. Guides, touch, taste, tone. A heron drifts over, gray as weather, legs trailing like thoughts not yet finished. It banks toward the pond, and every small life edits its plan. The frog sinks, insects still, even the reeds hush. Predation is not cruelty here. It is a budget. Energy must move. Can movement has mouths. When the heron lifts again, the water writes itself back into ripples. Near your knee, soil shows threads of white, fungal hyphae, delicate as breath lines. You imagine sugars moving along them from root to root, a neighborhood of trade, invisible to casual sight. In exchange for carbon, the fungi deliver minerals from stone, unlocking what weather begins. Chemistry is ecology's handwriting. You rest your palm on the ground, and warmth rises into you. Heat is traffic too, from sunlit stone to skin, from skin to air. A beetle crosses your hand and continues. Your palm is a continent of shade and scent. Your breath a traveling front. The same laws hold at every size, only the measure changes. For a while you listen. The pond plucks a string. Leaves answer with brushes. Far traffic lays a soft drone beneath. Soundscape is another web, and each call carries purpose. Territory declared, partner invited, danger named. A small cloud veils the sun, and the temperature slides. The bee drifts slower. The frog climbs higher to soak heat from rock. Microclimates mosaic the ground. Sun pockets, shade pools, damp corners, dry ridges. Species sort themselves among these squares. Fit is learned over seasons. You consider your drawing's fate in this living map. It will brighten afternoons, host ants, baffle birds. Then piece by piece, it will return to dust, and the dust will join soil, and the soil will join roots. What you made will be unmade and made again, elsewhere, in leaf, in shell, in bone. Nothing is lost. It changes chorus. The air thickens almost imperceptibly, as if the day had exhaled and chosen not to inhale again. Leaves turn their lighter, undersides to the sky. Ants quicken toward the nest. Sparrows gather under eaves, waiting quietly. Even the pond seems to hold its breath. You taste metal at the back of your tongue and know, without looking, what the map is drawing next. Somewhere beyond the trees, thunder speaks in a far low register. You lift your eyes to the brightened gray, imagining color turning to water. Perhaps the next lesson arrives as rain. It begins with a change in the air, subtle at first. The light softens, as though the day has pulled a sheer curtain across the sky. You pause with the chalk in your hand and look upward. The blue has deepened into a layered gray, the edges of clouds folding over one another like thick blankets being pulled into place. Somewhere far away, a low rumble rolls through the air, slow, rounded, without urgency, but sure in its arrival. The leaves overhead respond first, tilting to show their lighter undersides. Birdsong thins. Even the ants that wandered across. Your drawing earlier seemed to vanish into the thin cracks in the pavement. The air holds a new weight now, not oppressive, but full, as if each breath has gathered an extra handful of moisture. You can taste the rain before it falls. The first drop lands on the blue arc of your chalk. It darkens instantly, a small bruise of water soaking into powder. Then another, and another, until the surface of your work is dotted with tiny, expanding circles. The edges of each line blur, colors beginning to feather outward. What was once crisp and deliberate becomes softer, more fluid, like a painting melting into itself. Water is an uninvited collaborator, gentle one moment, insistent the next. It does not ask where it should flow. It follows gravity's quiet instructions. Each drop gathers more of the chalk's pigment, carrying it into the shallow valleys of the pavement, then toward the slope at the edge of the path. You watch tiny streams form, each one a delicate current of color in motion. Blues fade into grays. Yellows become pale gold before vanishing. This is the water cycle in miniature, a transformation that mirrors the journey of rivers and clouds. Evaporation pulled this water from oceans, lakes, and leaves days or weeks ago. It rose invisibly into the air, gathered into clouds as vapor condensed into droplets, then drifted on winds until today. Now it returns, each drop part of a vast system that moves ceaselessly between sky, earth, and sea. You think of how every drop has a history. Some may have fallen as snow on a distant mountain, melted into a stream, and traveled for miles before. Rising again is vapor. Some may have been locked in glacial ice for centuries before freedom. Now, in this moment, they have arrived here, landing on your chalk lines and carrying them away at your feet. The colors swirl together in the shallow. Water, blending into shades you did not choose, but which feel inevitable. Pigment particles, calcium carbonate, iron oxide, ultramarine are suspended in the water for a time before gravity draws them down into the soil. There, they may become part of the mineral mix that nourishes roots or travel deeper toward the groundwater. In this way, your drawing begins a second life, invisible but continuing. You realize that loss and renewal are not separate events in nature. They are two sides of the same turning. The rain is erasing your art, yes, but in doing so, it is also delivering it to places it could not reach on its own. What you made here may one day be part of a shell in a stream bed, a fleck of mineral, in a bird's egg, or a grain of dust that settles on another artist's canvas far from here. The rain quickens. Drops merge into rivulets, rivulets into small flows. You see how the pavement itself directs the movement. Shallow dips pooling water, raised seams channeling it away. Engineers call this runoff. Ecologists call it transport. To the rain, it is simply what happens when potential energy meets slope. You place your palm on the wet ground, feeling the cool spread instantly into your skin. In that contact, you're reminded that water is a universal connector. The same molecules now soaking your fingers could have been part of a cloud above the Amazon, a wave in the Pacific, or a dewdrop on Arctic moss. Its shape and place change, but its essence remains. The smell of rain rises around you, petrichor, the earthy fragrance released when water touches dry soil. It comes from plant oils and compounds like geosmin, produced by soil-dwelling microbes. The scent is a kind of signal. Many creatures can smell rain long before they see it. For you, it's also a memory, a sense of freshness, of beginnings woven into endings. You sit back on your heels and watch as your once clear shapes dissolve into watercolor blurs. It is a different kind of beauty now, one that does not depend on control. You are a witness, not a maker, as the rain finishes the work you began. There is a calm in that surrender, the knowledge that your art's impermanence is not a flaw, but a feature. Somewhere nearby, the frog you saw earlier calls out, its voice resonant in the damp air. For amphibians, this is a signal that conditions are right: moisture to keep skin hydrated, softer ground for movement, richer scents for finding food. The rain you feel on your skin is also the rain that will replenish the pond, cool the stones, and feed the roots. What washes away here will nourish elsewhere. You trace one last line in the wet chalk, watching it dissolve almost immediately. It feels like writing on the surface of a river. The joy is in the act, not in its staying. Rain teaches that lesson. Gently, again and again, each drop a reminder that movement is part of the story. As the shower begins to ease, you see the pavement change color again, the deep, dark wetness lightening toward its dry gray. In a few hours, there may be no trace of what you made, no sign of the colors that once curled and looped across this square of ground. But somewhere, the materials are still out there, in soil, in stream, in root, in wing. You have not lost them, you have set them free. The clouds begin to thin, and a pale brightness seeps back into the world. Leaves drip in irregular rhythms, small afterthoughts of the rain. You hear the sound of water moving away, into gutters, into grass, into the low places where puddles will hold it until the sun calls it back to the sky. The air is cooler now, the pavement darker and smoother. The scents are sharper, the sounds more distinct, as though the rain has rinsed not only the ground, but the atmosphere itself. It feels like a reset, a clearing. You breathe in deeply. the freshness settling into you the way the water has settled into the earth. You look at the space where your drawing was and feel no urge to mourn its absence. It has completed its cycle from creation to dissolution to transformation. In its passing, it has joined the vast, ongoing circulation of matter and energy that runs through every living thing. Your chalk has returned to the earth it came from, and the earth will use it well. You stand, feeling the damp cling of your clothes and the cool breath of air on your skin. The sun is breaking through again, low and warm, and light falls differently now, softer, gold-edged. Perhaps the days? Last lesson lies not in the rain that erased your colors, but in the light that now returns to them in memory. The sidewalk holds the last of the rain like a memory not quite finished. You stand where your drawing once lived and watch the ground dry from the edges inward, pale halos widening as water slips back into air. A faint blush of color remains in the pores of the concrete, the echo of a bell after the chime. Even as the surface clears, the picture brightens inside you, more complete now than when it was whole, because attention has gathered its pieces and arranged them gently together. You close your eyes, and an afterimage rises soft arcs, a thread of yellow crossing blue, a leaf's shadow laying a delicate lattice. Part of that glow is simple biology. Photoreceptors recover it different rates, and for a heartbeat, the world replays itself on the inner screen. The steadier glow is memory, a weave begun in the hippocampus, the seahorse-shaped archivist that links color with warmth, texture with ease, and tags this afternoon as worth keeping for the body to revisit later. Neurons that fired together while you drew now whisper again, strengthening their shared path. Long-term potentiation lowers the threshold for future conversation, so calm is easier to find next time. A network forms, the feel of chalk on your fingers, the hush after thunder, the scent of wet stone braided into the same quiet chord. Later, a single note will summon the rest. Blue on a sidewalk, rain in the air, the small relief of a cloud thinning into light at the end of the storm. You touch your fingertips and find the memory there too, not as dust, but as sensation. The somatosensory map lights the same neighborhood that glowed when you drew. Your brain is not a hallway of locked rooms. It is a city of bridges. Vision speaks to touch, touch to emotion, emotion to attention. The amygdala listens for meaning and safety. The prefrontal cortex sets the tempo. The thalamus keeps time and lets signals pass in an even rhythm, so the whole city moves without hurry. You start to walk, slow steps along the drying path. Park settles into ordinary brilliance, birds testing their voices after rain, a child in red boots inspecting a puddle, a tree releasing single drops like the last lines of a poem. What you carry now is not the picture alone, but the way the picture arranges the world. Attention glides to edges and rests on small changes of light. This is memory too, not storage, but guidance and inner compass tuned to steadiness. Tonight, when your eyes close, the archive will move. In slow-wave sleep, the hippocampus replays the day's patterns and brief ripples, sending them again to cortex and encouraging synapses to grow sturdier spines. In REM, fragments compete and collaborate as if your mind were turning the drawing, to see it from more than one angle. Meanwhile, the glymphatic flow rinses away the day's litter. The brain cleans and copies at once, filing what matters and clearing a desk for tomorrow. Forgetting will help you remember. Unused paths soften, clutter thins, important routes widen. The sidewalk of your mind keeps only the lines you are likely to walk again. The rest becomes background quieted, not lost ready for other days. You do not lose your life by this. You gain the ability to move through it. Pruning is not punishment but care, the gardener's way of giving light and air to what you intend to grow. You pause by the pond's edge. The surface, smoothed by rain, dimples in bright rings where insects touch. A heron stands at a measured distance, one leg folded, patient as a clock. Light returns in pieces. A triangle of sun on water, a polished fleck on a pebble, a warm band. Across your sleeve. Your memory accepts these as updates to the same afternoon, tucking them into the earlier weave without tearing it. Experience is revision that remains friendly with its original. You kneel and make a small gesture on the damp concrete with a stub of white. The line is faint, a whisper more than a word, but it pleases you. You know it will fade, and that knowledge softens your wish for permanence into something truer, participation. To make, to watch, to let go, and to remember, these are phases of one cycle, like evaporation and rain. Your arc returns to earth. Your attention carries it forward. Together they complete a circle that feels both humble and whole. Somewhere, inside, microglia tends synapses like gardeners, trimming what is overstretched and nurturing what is needed. Oligodendrocytes wrap favored axons in myelin, smoothing the way so a signal arrives with grace instead of hurry. The default mode network hums when you grow still, offering room for reflection and gentle stitching of past and future selves. You are not doing these things. They are being done in you, the way a forest tends its hidden roots without asking to be seen. You think of conservation? The truth that matter and energy change form, but do not vanish. Light becomes warmth on your skin. Chalk becomes soil. Sound becomes a quiet activation in auditory cortex. An afternoon becomes a pathway you can walk again with one breath. Nothing truly disappears. Even forgetting is dispersal, like your colors. Traveling into ground and root and stream, the shape changes. The story continues. Meaning stays in motion long after the colors lift from the pavement. A breeze lifts, bringing the faint sweetness of crushed clover. You picture the chapter you lived today as an engram, a trace written across many cells. When you recall it, the brain does not pull a file. It rebuilds a room. The floor may be cleaner, the window more open, the chair in better light. Each remembering is also an editing, not to deceive, but to harmonize who you were with who you are now. In this way, the scene grows simpler and more generous each time you visit, and the path back grows easier to walk. A final patch of sunlight lies on the pavement like a small blessing. You step through it and feel its warmth rise through your shoes, a negligible physics that becomes a generous psychology. This is how small energies become large meanings, repeated, noticed, shared inwardly with patience. You imagine the synapses tapping hands once more, sealing the hour. Night will come, and with it the planet's slow turn of light into memory, but a soft brightness already travels with you, steady as your breath. In that glow you sense tomorrow's invitation to kneel again, or simply to notice, letting a new line begin where the breath ends. Either way, the light knows the way back, and your body remembers it with unhurried trust. Gently. The path home is damp, but welcoming. As you walk, you pass windows that hold small landscapes, lamplight on books, steam rising from a cup, a cat watching its reflection. The world offers tiny chalks of its own, and you let them tint the edges of what you are keeping. Gratitude arrives easily when you name nothing large and everything specific. At your door you pause, letting details settle the mineral scent on your fingertips. The whale-shaped cloud, the pond seeming wider after the frog's low call. You step in with the light behind you and the memory before you, not as a picture, but as a way the body now knows to be at ease. Somewhere, deep and quiet, cells that met this afternoon meet again and rehearse a simple choreography. Look, touch, breathe, begin. On the table, you set the chalk down, a pale, ordinary thing made, extraordinary by attention. Tomorrow will ask for its own drawing or for none at all. Either way, the mind is ready to notice, to keep, to let go, and to begin again. You let the room grow quiet and feel the day folding itself into you. Somewhere, a gentle question brightens. What small color will tomorrow's light reveal first? And now, as our story gently fades, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this moment with me. Your presence here means the world, and your support helps me create even more peaceful journeys. Just for you. If this helped you rest, please consider liking, subscribing, or simply coming back tomorrow night. Until then, stay cozy, stay kind, and may your dreams tonight be soft, serene, and full of wonder. Good night, my friend. With warmth, David.